right then, seeing as it's 7 o'clock, I will call this meeting of the Norton Town Finance Committee to order on Wednesday, October 13th, 7 p.m. We're going to do a quick roll call. We have a bunch of people missing tonight, so we'll save them for last. Bonnie? Here. Paula? Here. Michael?
Here.
Yelena?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
All right, so let the record show Kevin Snyder, Joe Parker, Steve Evans, and Zach Sillis are not with us this evening. Steve may be joining us late. So with that, and looking at my score sheet and all the blanks still on it, what do we have tonight?
Not too bad. I think if we can start with Article 2, the operating budget amendments, and I'll go through them, and if you have questions, feel free to ask. And at the end, if we could just, rather than have you have to take a roll call vote for each line item, if we could just vote as presented and where the sources of the funds are coming from.
Bonnie's excited about that idea.
Okay. All right. So the first amendment is under 001141510 assessors salaries, and the request is for $7,824, and about $1,000 of this was for budgeting error, and the rest is to increase the hours of one of the staff people in the office who currently works 28 hours. And this would increase the hours to 37.5 hours.
Okay.
And I know if you have any questions, I know Denise Ellis, the assessor, is on and can answer them. I know they've had an increase in workload, a lot going on in the town, and a lot of it is commercial, which takes up a good deal of their time in the assessing of that. So,
does anyone have questions on the increase to the assessor's salary line item? No. Michael's shaking his head no. The only question I have is, well, I'm assuming that this would then carry over to the next fiscal year if we approve this.
correct.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't have to, but it would be presented that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Seeing no questions on this, if we're going to vote this all as one, then let's move to the next.
I'll move on. The next is treasurer, $5,000 under salary. We did have a time where we had both treasurers working together. As you know, Catherine left and Jacqueline Boudreau came on. So this would be to amend that.
Okay. So just a salary adjustment.
Yes.
Any questions on this?
The next one under town clerk is $5,000 under 001161570, her expense budget. And this is for general code. As you know, at the town meetings, we've made some zoning changes. And so general code needs to upgrade our bylaws that we now have. Everything is done through general code. So it's online and available. The dogs are weighing in.
Just like being at work.
All right. Any questions on that? And the next line item is data processing. This is the salary for Charlene in data processing. When she proposed her budget, she did put in for a salary increase. So
Oh,
adjust that.
okay.
And then police, salary overtime. The request was for 45,000, and what I'm recommending right now is 27,000. And hopefully they can make it through with that. And if they need more money in May, we'll have to look at it then. But hopefully they can make it through with the 27,000. I did talk to the police chief about it. I don't know if Ryan's on, but obviously you never know, because you don't know how the winter's going to be, and what's going to come up with injured on duty and things like that. But right now the recommendation is 27,000. Under police salary new hires, the request was for 2. This would allow for 1 new hire this year, 27,500. And
So, just to clarify, would that be net new headcount? Not backfilling any
correct.
turnover? Okay.
And salary additional hours, I'm not recommending that right now. This would be for a staff person, the records administrator. I think we'll look at that, and there may be money in the budget to be able to increase the hours somewhat.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to take a step back a little bit on the new hires. Mike, you wanted to reduce the request by 1 person. What was your rationale for that, as going against what Chief recommended?
I know that 2 was in anticipation of a retiree, but right now if we can wait and see if that is going to happen.
Okay, so it's not certain then, obviously.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then under fire, the overtime 125,000, and the recommendation is 75,000. And the same situation applies. Right now they have 10 on at a time, and so if 1 person calls out sick, they're not necessarily replaced. But if 2 people call out sick on the same day, they've got to call somebody in. And I did talk with the fire chief over this, and same situation. We don't know what emergencies they're going to be and how the winter's going to be, but hopefully we can work with this and not have to come back in May. But there's a good possibility that we would have to. And I know Sean is on, if he wants to add to that at all.
No, I mean, that's pretty accurate. There's a good chance we probably need to come back and ask. And we'll try to stay within our budget to the best of our ability. But as you know, we've been trying to work towards opening the Chartley station, and we've had a plan in place to do that. And at one point, probably a few months ago, we did get to 10 personnel, not on duty, but on paper, because they hadn't been through the academy yet. Since the beginning of the fiscal year, we've lost five people. We're fortunate enough to get 2 transfers from another department, and we're aggressively trying to fill the other 3 positions, but there's going to be a delay by the time we can hire them to get them through the academy, like I know I've explained to you guys before. So, that's kind of where we're at anyway.
If anyone knows anyone that is a paramedic and wants to work, in
definitely
send them to Sean,
please.
And the other is under the fire department is emergency medical expense, and this was cut in May, and this is just putting it back, $3,450 for training. And Sean, you want to explain what the training is?
The training we use for recertifications, we're also required to do certain trainings by our medical director every year for skills assessment, and we're constantly doing refresher trainings. We have to do CPR, as you're all aware, advanced cardiac life support, pediatric advanced life support, and all those things have to be renewed regularly. So all that money goes towards that.
Any other questions on that?
Anybody?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Paula.
I'm trying to remember if this has been the way it's been in the past couple years that I've been on FinCom, where they're requesting, overtime pay, and then you only recommend a certain amount, and then they ask for it again in the spring. So I'm just worried because this could be like $100,000 altogether that they would need in the spring.
Go ahead.
So is this kind of the pattern of how it goes in the fall, that they request it, then kind of see how the year goes, and then they can get it in the spring?
Well, I know last year, Sean, you didn't come back in the spring for money. Actually, I think you turned money back.
Yeah, last year we had a little bit of a surplus in salaries due to not being able to fill some open positions, and also due to us utilizing the SAFER grant that we've spoken about before. The SAFER grant had a start deadline, so we before we even able to try to start hiring the people. So we put that into effect with a permission from FEMA, so that we could, maximize that money for the town. So we did have a little bit of a surplus in salaries as a result that we're able to use for overtime. If not, we probably would have had to come back, but.
Okay.
So I have a question. Do we have a game plan from a financial perspective to get ahead of this constantly needing to be hiring both police and fire? It feels like we're having this conversation every year, like, oh, we had 3 people retire, we're trying to find people to fill their spots. We had 2 people retire, we're trying to find people to fill their spots. And I feel like if we could afford to hire 2 extra people, then if 2 people retired, we'd still be fully staffed, and then we could take our time to find somebody to fill a spot.
Right. I can speak to the fire department if you'd like. I don't know if Mike wants to speak before me or not. Okay. So as you know, when we did that SAFER grant, so right now we're trying to staff, stop me if I'm boring you too much here, but we're trying to maintain a staffing level of 8 people on duty. Right now I have 8 people on every single shift with the injuries and the people missing and the people in the fire academy that haven't came out yet. So right now, everybody that takes a sick or a vacation day or some kind of time off, we have to fill them person for person, which it's costly, right? So what I've been trying to do is get up to 10 people, so we have like that shock absorber to drop from 10 to 8. And then if we have a retirement, as you guys all know, it takes almost a year to replace that person. Like you said, and we talk about this every year, right? So I've been trying to build up to that point where we could get that buffer in there. So if we had like 2 retirements or an injury, we could kind of absorb that till we were able to hire that person without needing a massive amount of additional overtime to maintain that staffing level. So that's kind of our plan, and that's why we pursued that SAFER grant. And in addition, the SAFER grant, the year that we went for it for the first time ever, didn't have any community match requirements for it either. So it was pretty great that we were able to get it at that time, So hopefully that answers your question. And just real quick on some other good news, if we can offset some of the bad news, I guess. But we just we're getting $18,000 of reimbursement from one of the departments that one of our members transferred to. So that's good. We just got a grant for just under $25,000 to do some exhaust capturing system at the other station, and our CPE reimbursement that we just started going for last year. The estimate is looking like it's going to be around $160,000 that we'll get back this year from that. So, and I think he's on here. Captain Wilson's been doing a really good job with taking care of all that for us. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, anything else? The next item is Norton Public Schools and $457,824 for transportation, and nothing under the salaries. And I don't know if Joe is on. He's going to try and be on.
Matt's on. And Steve Evans has joined us, so that's excellent too.
Yeah, hi. That is the $457,000 is just our transportation that we had deferred from the Springtown meeting. It's simply just the amount that we need to continue the year. We knew that we could start the year with a small amount of money on transportation because most of our bills come in after September. So this would just close the amount we need for transportation. We did had some money in there for some additional salaries, but we pulled that back. We're hoping through really aggressive look at our procurement practices and some of our current contracts that are coming up under renewal. We think that we can be very aggressive with our budget and possibly save enough money to be able to cover that. But if not, we will come back in the Springtown meeting to talk about that.
All right. That sounds impressive. If you can make that gap up, we'll all be excited. Does anyone have any questions for Matt?
I do, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Steve.
Madam, just curious, from all the different sources of funding that's been received for FEMA, or I think there's 2 or 3 other pools of funds that the schools have been receiving. 1 is how much has been received? 2, what is the balances that are left? And 3, are those funds earmarked for a specific expense? If you could just explain those.
Yeah, so we've had so for FY22 at this point we have about a little over $700,000 ESSER 2 grant that came in. A small amount of that, I think it's roughly about $11,000, is directed. We have to use it specifically for education loss, and the rest of it can be used to support our budget. We have that as part of our FY22 budget to support. The ESSER 3 grant, which is coming in, which is approximately, I think it's about $1.5 million, about almost 375,000 of that is directed towards, again, interventions and learning loss, very specific that we have to spend it on. The rest of that we are kind of banking for the next FY23 budget and hoping to use that to support one-time needs coming up in the FY23 budget to get us through to the next budgetary phase.
And so, Matt, maybe I missed it, but the ESSER 3, what was the total? You said 375 was for intervention programs. What was the total?
About 1.5.
Okay, thank you. So ideally, the funds that are still earmarked here are supplementing to the budget, so they could be used for transportation if needed.
They could. We're trying to save those funds for FY23 because we know we are going to have some issues in FY23 with our budget, and we want to retain those funds to help us with support in FY23.
So there's no end date to these funds. This is the balance. You can spend it whenever, or is it within a period?
Yeah, they sort of with the ESSER funds, they gave us fairly generous end dates on them. They've pushed them out a couple of years. And they keep adjusting them. So we had some grants that were supposed to end in, obviously in last December, we were supposed to have them end. They pushed them out to September. Those September ones, they've given us till December. So they kind of keep changing the end date on those funds. So we do have a couple of years to spend those. And we're hoping to utilize them for the future budgetary needs.
Okay. And anything left with CARES or FEMA money? Or is that all expended?
FEMA, unfortunately, was not wonderful for us. They advertised right up front. They said, "Oh yeah, you can claim all this stuff." We claimed it, and then after we started pushing the claims through, they just started rejecting them. So we had a really hard time with FEMA. We're still fighting them on a lot of things, stuff that we actually have letters approving us to do, and they're rejecting those. So FEMA wasn't great for the schools. The CARES Act. I think the schools CARES Act are fully expended at this point, and I think the town is pretty much expended on those as well. Mike could speak more to that.
What was the balance that we received in CARES funds for the schools?
There was a couple of small, there was like 187,000 that was specifically directed towards, based on a Title I allocation. We had about 500,000 that we used a lot of that for technology. We had a specific technology grant of 64,000 that we received as well. All of those funds, unfortunately, we had a hard date of December 30th to spend those, and they did not extend that deadline until December 29th, 2019. So we had already fully allocated those funds and expended most of them at that point in time. So when they extended it to the end of the next calendar year, it didn't do us a lot of good because we had already spent those funds. Having 1 day's notice just was not going to do it for us.
And just for an example, when you're saying the FEMA wasn't good to us, we've expended the funds up front for certain expenses. We thought we got reimbursed. When it doesn't work, you have to now supplement that through the school budget for those?
The municipal CARES Act funds were retained with this contingency, with the potential that we would have some issues with FEMA not approving. We realized that early on that we were having a fight with them, so the town was able to retain funds, and I think they're able to cover all of the FEMA items that were not covered.
We will, and FEMA became more of a public safety reimbursement. They really weren't reimbursing anything other than public safety in the end.
Roughly how much got rejected or didn't help us?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Speaking of ESSER, so last year Southeastern Regional gave an option to the town to have the selectmen approve using ESSER funds towards the budget, and then came back later after town meeting and let us know that they could not use ESSER funds for the budget. So the $80,030 is what we had anticipated would have come out of ESSER funds.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mike.
Now, Mike, do we know why they changed their minds?
I don't know. I don't know if Matt has any insight on that. It was just they told us that the state said that the ESSER funds couldn't be used to supplement the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't put much more on that either.
And then the last item, the Medicare, is $14,000. This is just to cover Medicare expense for our new hires. So the total would be $704,628 from free cash. Any other questions on that portion?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Steve.
Mike, you said the Medicare was how much?
14,000.
And how many employees is that?
I don't know. Matt, do you know how many new employees this year? About? For
the schools, we had budgeted, I think, for about 5. And then we've had to add a few bodies due to leaves of absence. We have to hire folks in to cover that. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what the number is right now.
So these would have been positions that weren't budgeted, or we had to exceed what was budgeted, that we have to pick up that expense.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we don't know how many employees makes up that 14,000.
I don't have it right in front of me now. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. And the next item is for the school fields and the town hall senior center project. So this borrowing has been done, and this would be the $59,840, and this would be raised and appropriated, and this would come out of the debt exclusion. And that's it.
I don't have any other questions. Talking a bunch tonight. All right. So, Mike, do we have to do this as 2 votes? One for the funds from free cash and one for the raise and appropriate?
You could just vote to approve the budget supplements as recommended, with $704,628 coming from free cash and $59,840 raise and appropriate.
All right. Then I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Bonnie,
I move that we recommend Article 2, as printed, with $704,628 coming from free cash and $59,840 coming from raise and appropriate from the debt exclusion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none. All right, we will vote. Bonnie,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
I'm going to abstain because I didn't hear all the conversation, so I'll abstain on this vote.
okay. Yelena,
Yes.
Bill,
Yeah.
and I am also a yes, so that makes it 6 yeses and an abstention. So the motion passes.
All right, then the next article is Article 4, and this is the water operating budget amendments, and at this time, there really is not any, so I would recommend you vote no action for now.
All right. I would entertain a motion for no action on Article 3.
4.
4.
Madam Chair,
Bonnie,
I move that we take no action on Article 4.
Second.
all right, I have a motion and a second. Any conversation? Hearing none, we will vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Elena?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I also am a yes, so that is unanimous.
All right, Article 5, this is the sewer operating budget. The town accountant is asking that you vote to amend the vote that was taken at the May town meeting by, this would amend the sources of funds to say that 80,000 will be from the sewer betterment account. He just wanted to clarify for the DOR, that the Department of Revenue, that there would be money coming from the sewer betterment account to help pay off the note on the West Main Street sewer project.
Okay. So do we just need to vote to recommend the article as written?
Just recommend that the sewer budget be amended under the sources of funding to state that 80,000 would come from sewer betterment.
All right, Bonnie, do you have that?
We'll see. Are you ready for?
I'm ready to entertain a motion on Article 5.
Madam Chair,
Bonnie,
I move that we recommend for sources of funding for the sewer operating budget, $80,000 from the sewer betterment account.
do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Bill. And do we have any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I just have one.
Sure, Steve.
What's the balance of that account, Mike?
The sewer betterment account,
Yes.
I am not sure, to be honest with you, Steve.
Is it at least 80,000?
Oh, yeah. I mean, from, if you remember from the Housing Authority alone from DHCD, it was well over $100,000 that I know John Harrop's on. I don't know if he has that figure, but I know it was quite a bit from DHCD.
And I don't have the figure directly from them, but I know between them and other people have already started paying them. I know James and Rose had talked about that figure and come up with that was a comfortable figure for them. So I think that should be fine.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second on Article 5. I think we are ready to vote. Bonnie,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Elena,
Yes.
Bill.
Yeah.
I am also a yes, so that is unanimous.
Thank you. The next article is Article 7, the capital plan amendments. And I'll just put it up. Let me just make it a little bigger for you.
That would be excellent. My eyes are getting very old.
All right. So, the recommendations approved by the Capital Committee were $35,000 for data processing, and so this $35,000, they've done this before. This is so that we're not out replacing all computers at the same time. So this would be for any upgrades that we need on laptops, workstations, printers. The next item under police department, in the fall, they had requested 3 cruisers, and we weren't able to fund it fully. So this would provide for another cruiser at $70,000. Also portable radios, $20,000. This is a replacement program for radios that are outdated. And the same with the tasers, $21,000. And I know Brian Clark is on if he wants to speak on it at all, or if you have questions for him. And hopefully he's able to find those cruisers.
Right.
Good evening. We found one. We haven't really found another yet, but we're still working on it.
Wow. Does anyone have any other questions for Chief Clark?
Chief, how many radios and how many tasers does this replace?
The radios will be 5 portable radios. The tasers are a 5-year plan to replace 30 tasers. They're an electronic weapon. Electronics change all the time. We've had them. We have 13 that are out of warranty right now and causing some problems that won't be able to be replaced or repaired. And there's some that are 6 and 7 years old that are just getting past warranty within a short period of time. So this will be to get 30 new tasers, and there'll be a payment plan of the $20,000 for the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. On the school department, $69,000 is for a minibus for athletics, and $85,000 is for technology displays. And I believe the superintendent had indicated that they're looking to get Promethean smart boards at the middle school, and that's what this would be used for. And there was a request for parking lot re-engineering, and the superintendent has asked to hold off on that. They're going to come back with that at another time. They're rethinking that. The highway department, a request from the highway department. The first one was the Peterbilt truck that was previously approved, And then Keith found out that it would be $12,000 more than he anticipated. So that was the request for $12,000. And that'll replace a 2003 truck. And another request is for $71,952. And this is for our Chevy Silverado that'll also have a plow. And so the total requests were $383,952. And this would come from the capital funds already appropriated.
Mike, what's in the capital fund right now?
Sure. Right now, the beginning balance in the capital fund is $283,696. And then with the $800,000 that you previously approved, that would bring it to $1,083,696. And with these expenditures, it would leave a balance of $699,744.
Okay.
So that would leave us the payments that we have each year total $292,100. So we'd be able to cover that and some other items if we didn't put money back into the budget.
Okay. Seems like we're taking a conservative approach this year, so that makes sense.
Yeah, the
With
goal was
continued uncertainty.
Yeah, the goal was to hold on. In the end, we'll have just under $2 million in free cash. And we're trying to stay right around there to hold on to that for the future.
Okay.
Or any unforeseen things that come up.
If too many more unforeseen things come up, Mike, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out when it happens. Does anyone have any other questions on the capital budget? All right, so I will entertain a motion to recommend Article 5. 7. I can't read the numbers on my paper. And this is all coming from free cash, Mike?
No, this will come right out of the capital.
Oh, out of the capital budget? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Bonnie.
I move that we recommend $383,952 from the capital budget for capital plan amendments for fiscal year 22.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Bill. Any other questions or conversation? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah.
Steve?
Yes.
Elena?
Yes.
Bill?
Yep.
And I am a yes, so that is unanimous.
All right, the next article is Article 10. And I'll recap. I don't know if I talked to you about this before. I've talked about it so much that, but let me just, so this is for the bike trail. And the bike trail that's going to be Mansfield's extending their trail to Norton, and then we'll connect and run all the way down to Crane Street. Right now, the plans are just about at a 75% design stage. There's a few adjustments that have to be made to the plans. We thought we were at 75%, but the Aeronautics Administration came in and said that you cannot have a bike path in a certain area near the airport that's a flight protection zone. I know 495 goes through it, so I didn't understand why you can't have a bike path through it. But So we have to realign some things there. So, but we're just about at 75% design. And I don't know if I talked to you about this before, but I'll go over it again. So the bike trail is being built on the right of way where the sewer trunk line is, that Mansfield owned the property and put the sewer trunk line in. And Mansfield bought that property in bankruptcy court from the railroad. Well, because we're using federal funds to construct the rail trail, a complete title search had to be done. And as part of that title search, it was discovered that on 39 of the properties along the railroad right away, the railroad never actually took the property. They took rights across the property. It's kind of crazy because the people don't even know they own it, because everyone, it's all shown everywhere as Mansfield owning it. But because we're using federal funds, we had to go through that process. And the hope is, that the MFN will somehow straighten this out, the Mansfield, Foxborough, Norton Sewer District, by doing a confirmatory deed and taking ownership of that entire right of way. Because right now it's crazy that we've alerted 39 homeowners to the fact that we think they own it. And now they could go back to the MFN and say, what do you mean you have a sewer pipe on my property? You didn't. So I don't know how that, it's just a crazy legal situation. But in case we have to take the easements, we've hired an appraiser, and Friday he told us to figure about $1.50 to $2 a square foot. So in order to have we don't want to, the plan right now is to have the bike trail on the tip in 2022. So we don't want to do anything that will delay that, because you never know when you're going to get back on the tip. And it could put the whole plan and, jeopardize the whole plan. So Capital, I presented this to Capital last night, and they voted their support to authorize borrowing up to $700,000 to cover the acquisition of easements along the trail. Now, hopefully we don't have to spend that, but at least we're showing that we're in the process and have the authorization to borrow if need be.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Michael.
And if these people own this property all this time, obviously they weren't paying taxes on it. Would it be within our rights to play hardball, request back taxes on this?
I don't know if we actually could go back and do that, but hopefully we can, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that. And my argument is with the appraisal, there's nothing on the right of way because Mansfield always made sure that it stayed clear. So nothing could be built on it. There's no trees on it, no bushes on it. So, how high can the value be of a piece of land with nothing on it that has a sewer main through it?
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Bill.
So Mike, if we had to borrow the $700,000, what are the going terms for something like that? Is that a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 1%, 2%, 10%? How much additional debt service, worst case scenario, could we be looking at?
I think for the purchase of land, it would be a 10-year. And I mean, right now, when we just borrowed recently, it was 1.47, but I don't know what the rates are going to be. But so you're looking around 2% probably.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mike, assuming all of this goes through without one of what I can imagine may be a multitude of hitches, when is the rail trail expected to be completed?
Sandy, do you know that? It would probably, they make us take easements for 5 years. I just can't believe how long some construction starts, because I was talking with the engineer on the 123 job, and I said, when are you going to be out of here? And, well, we have till 2025. I'm like, 2025? 5 years? So they do.
Well, if they've got that much time, could they come down to Northwestern and throw a light in there while they're just hanging out?
That's 2025. So,
Madam Chair, I think they said about a year of construction from the time it starts. So at this point, I think we're looking at later in FY22, just to make sure all this is resolved. So it's, you know, a little ways off, but certainly getting closer than it has been. As many of you know, we've been working on this since 2013. We've been pushed off twice now. Originally, our timeline was 2019, and then it went to 21, and then it went to 22. So I would think I would echo what Mike said, that if, you know, we can get this money, you know, it's unfortunate that we have to come back and ask for more, but, you know, certainly if we can get the money approved and get this moving forward, I think it's close to $4 million that the state's going to pay to build the trail. So, you know, we are getting that in return.
Thank you, Sandy.
Madam Chair,
Oh, Steve first.
Ms. Khan, how much have we approved for this project? And has anything been expended?
we approved 120,000 that we have, and now with this 700,000. So this would all be for easement acquisitions.
Bill?
thank you. Just to follow up on my previous question, back in the napkin, we'd be looking at an additional 80,000 a year for debt service, if anybody cares.
All right. Any other questions, or are we ready to vote on Article 10? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 10 to raise and appropriate $700,000.
Thought it was borrow.
That is borrow.
Oh,
Yep.
gotcha. Okay.
Oh, to borrow? Isn't raising and appropriating also borrowing, or
No, just to borrow.
no?
Borrow.
To borrow. Okay, I stand corrected.
That's all right. Madam Chair,
Bonnie?
I move that we recommend Article 10 to borrow up to $700,000 to fund the acquisition of easements along the rail trail.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Bonnie?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Elena?
Yes.
Bill?
yes?
And I also am a yes, so that is unanimous.
Okay, the next article, Article 12, the Water and Sewer Department has decided to pull that article off. There's no need for it right now, so that will be pulled off. And then Article 13 is a home rule petition. This is to authorize the town to file for special legislation to grant 2 additional all alcohol licenses licenses for the sale of all alcoholic beverages not to be drunk on the premises. So, in other words, 2 liquor stores, all alcohol liquor stores. And I know we have someone on to speak on that for you tonight. If David Waluka could speak, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, good evening, everybody. For the record, my name is David Waluka, Waluka Real Estate Corp. I have offices in Sharon. I represent a group that has a lease in place at the Blue Star Industrial Park for a full package store, subject to the availability of an appropriate license from the town. When my clients expressed interest in the site, we didn't know whether any package store licenses were available. I called the town and learned that there weren't any, but that the town was considering adding several licenses via a home rule petition to the Massachusetts legislature. The state quota formula for the package stores under Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 15 is 1 per 5,000 population based on the most recent census. The legislation is, I've just gone through this once, and I'm going through it once more in another town. So I'm not new to, let's get out of the full screen, there we go. I'm not new to the process. We just went through this process in Plainville, going through the legislature, and in fact, that store just opened up this month. The legislation is vetted closely by the state before being brought up for votes, and it follows an order. Being a home rule petition, the legislation ordinarily passes. They ask questions like, where are they going to go? Are there any conflicts? Or, are there any town officials who have a financial interest in them? They ask quite a few questions to make sure that it is, in fact, an arm's length piece of legislation. The Select Board was in the initial stages of preparing such a request for last May's annual town meeting, but it didn't come together, and Mr. Units can explain that better than I can. However, I obtained that language from Mr. Units and put together the citizens petition warrant article that is the subject of this EDC meeting. It was our understanding that this would probably come up at next May's town meeting, but in the real estate and development business, a year is a very long time. So we got the signatures and submitted them, and they've been certified by the town clerk. Before we went out for them, I got a call, was told that the 2020 census may have opened up another license. And unfortunately, when the town clerk certified the count, Norton was just a few hundred short of that threshold of 20,000. I then gathered the signatures, which were certified by the town clerk, to bring this warrant article forward. It does ask for 2 locations. Again, I was copying what I thought the intent of the Select Board was in terms of wanting one specifically at Blue Star and one at the other end of town, and submitted it that way. I'd be pleased to answer any questions, respond. Thank you. Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Steve.
Mike Units, what is the normal process to obtain a liquor license for Norton?
To obtain a liquor license, so if we had a license available?
No, if we have to go, and I think we have to petition the legislature, right?
Right. Well, the last time, that's what this would do. This would authorize the Board of Selectmen to file special legislation to petition the legislature to give us 2 additional licenses. This last time this was done, it was done by a store who wanted an all liquor license and produce barn, and that's how we got our extra license at that time.
Like, what's the difference though? If this, obviously this isn't the normal process, it's a deviation from the normal process. What would the normal process be if we didn't go with this article?
So the only way to get additional liquor license other than population increase is to petition the legislature. So either the Board of Selectmen could propose an article or by petition. Those are the only two ways to do it.
If I may, this does not guarantee the license to anyone. This just gives the licenses to the town to issue if and when they see fit. So it's not granting a license to anyone. It's granting the town the power to grant a license. And then there's a whole process in applying for a license, both at the local and state level.
No, and I get that. Thank you for the clarification. I'm just curious, if we didn't have this article, Mike, what action would be required for the town to get 2 additional liquor licenses?
There is no way to do it without an article, so it has to be an article presented by a petitioner or presented by a town department.
Okay, so regardless, this would have to be the next step for us.
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Michael?
Yeah, when it comes to requesting licenses like this, do you have to specify a location, or is it just adding 2 additional licenses sufficient?
If I may, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Having just gone through this, the state wants to know what the licenses are going. We just did one in, as I said, in Plainville at the intersection of 106 and Route 1. And it was site specific. And they had a second license downtown someplace. Again, we had interest only in the 1 license. And that process had already been started by the town. We didn't have to do any kind of a petition. The town had started this very same process. And if we were to wait next May, your town will be likely doing the same process. So this is just trying to save a year. And frankly, it might precipitate getting Blue Star to start that front retail section of the project sooner, because we would become the catalyst for the rest of those buildings.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Bill, you've been very patient.
So I'm going to express the same thing tonight that I expressed at the first time this was presented. We as the town tie marijuana establishments to some fraction of liquor licenses. So I find this article disingenuous to the townspeople, because you're asking for liquor licenses and you're automatically also increasing the potential for another marijuana establishment. And I'm not against the liquor store. I'm not against marijuana establishments, but we are not being transparent in this article.
Madam Chair?
And because of that, I don't think we should be voting on it.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, Mike, Mr. Maluka has said that the select board was in the process of doing this a year from now. Do you know what the progress was on that, or if that is still going forward?
Last year, it was discussed. I mean, there's 2 articles that were proposed on the warrant this year that are both going to be pulled off, I believe. So that's the same process that was working last year. The selectmen looked at it, and the feeling of the board was, they didn't want to move forward with it. I know there were different concerns at the time. I know that one of the concerns was that if the census went up over 20,000, then we'd end up with 3 liquor licenses. I know that was one of the concerns. So, I mean, it was talked about, but it didn't move forward, at all after the discussion. The discussion was back in April, I think, last year. And there were different scenarios. It actually went to the EDC, and the EDC looked at different areas of town, and so there's all kinds of debate on how you could do this, and do you say Blue Star Business Park, or do you say from 495 to the Eastern Town Line? I know there was a concern about staying away from Mansfield Ave because there's already 3 liquor licenses on Mansfield Ave. And there was talk about looking at the other end of 140, but it was kind of piecemeal in the zoning over there. And then 123 West Main Street, there was some talk there because that area of town really needs some more businesses, but then there was concern raised, well, Michelle's Corner has a liquor license and this would be competition for them. So that's all the debate, and the board decided at the time they just didn't want to move forward with it. And the board will be talking about this tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could say, at that time, the board had the ability to pull this off. They don't have that ability now because it's a petition article, and a petition article can't be changed because people signed the petition. The only way it can be amended is on the floor. If there was an amendment to be made to move it forward or not.
And if I could, Madam Chair, the language here, the 2 locations were already on the table with the town before we came. So the 2 locations had already been identified in this language before we came to the table. So it's not that we asked for Blue Star, the town had already identified, someone had identified Blue Star, and this language was written that way before. We didn't ask for that language. That's the way it had been. We're trying to make it as simple as possible, just take what the town was thinking about doing and move it forward.
Okay. Do we have more questions? Mike, has the select board voted on this article?
No, they haven't. They've asked for a presentation tomorrow night, and they'll vote tomorrow night.
I'd like to get a temperature check from the members of the finance committee. Do we want to wait and meet next Monday and vote on this following the select board's vote? Or do we want to vote on this now?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Paula.
was this presented to the EDC, and if so, what did they say?
Dave, do you, I was not at the meeting, so.
Do we still have Sandy?
At that point, they were having great discussions about protecting existing businesses, and they were also having discussions about why these 2 locations were in it. And there was a going back and forth. You do have a select person on the EDC, and she was going to take those concerns back to the select board, which I'm sure we'll hear tomorrow night. There were 2 issues, as you heard a moment ago from Mr. Rotundi, this issue of the marijuana. We have no interest in marijuana. None of the businesses that my clients own or operate have anything to do with cannabis. In fact, they stay away from it. The statute, the marijuana statute, was in fact written the way Mr. Rotundi describes it, and certainly that should be out there. But this is not an attempt by anyone to increase the number of licenses, but the statute does do that. And like the ability to grant or not grant package store licenses. The town has the same ability to grant or not grant a cannabis license if it feels the location is inappropriate. Certainly the vetting process for cannabis with the Cannabis Control Commission is logarithmically more than with the ABCC. That I can tell you by experience in the western part of the state. So yes, it is. It may or may not, because it's a ratio, and I don't know if this kicks in another license or not, and I don't know the ratio. But certainly it's not something that should be ignored. It should be transparent to the public that that's one of the offshoots of adding liquor licenses, is that there's a ratio of cannabis licenses to liquor licenses. Whether that has any impact or not, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it has no impact on whether the town should have these two or any one for the sake of generating new business in the community. This is a high-end package store. It's going to have, you know, cheeses and wines and all the things that go with the high-end package stores. It is not a national chain. This is an operation. They own about a dozen of them throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And I do have a presentation that I could show you. I've got photographs of what they're thinking of doing. And I can present that to you if you let me screen share. That'll be easy if you choose to see that.
I think that's fine.
You should be able to share your screen.
Let me try, hold on. Warrant article meeting notes. Oh, hold on, I cut it off and I opened something else up. Just give me a second, then I'll get it open.
Well, David's looking for that, Amy, if I could.
Sure.
Just on the last article that was reserved for the establishment of Public Works Department, I think tomorrow night that's going to be voted to be pulled off at this time.
Okay.
So this article you're debating right now is the only one you have left.
All right, I have it here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this is just a text. You're looking at a 4,000 to 5,000 square foot packaged gourmet food store when they get the license. Here is the park. You can see, you know, where the new set of lights is up here at the intersection. We would be in building 1. I had talks with Blue Star pre-COVID. I had a hotel that wanted to be where building 3 is, and maybe they'll come back someday. But as you know, the hospitality industry is still recovering. But we would take probably half of that first building. And they were talking about the corner having a drive-through of some kind. And I'm not involved in that. But that's the general location. As you can see, it's at the end of the, you all know where Blue Star is. So, you know, it's at the end of the ramp. It's a high visibility, high traffic area. You have all the new apartments that are here showing this woods. And of course, you've got Red Mill, and then you have on the other side of the highway. It's a very good location for this kind of use. Plus, if you add, you know, these are warehouses, but you're going to have office, medical, and other kinds of uses in the park as it grows. And so it's a nice area for what we're trying to do. This is atypical. This is not what this one will exactly look like, but this is the sort of thing that we're talking about. They'll have wine tastings and, you know, all those kinds of things. And there will be food, packed, you know, processed food to pick up and take. So it's not someplace you run in and get a nip and run out. In fact, I've been in one of the places, they basically said no nips, and that wasn't a gigantic problem for us. That's a different clientele. So this is essentially what we're trying to do. And we think it'll be an asset and good for the town. And hopefully it would be, for the other one at the other end of town, wherever that is, hopefully it'll be a model for that one as well. Again, we don't know where that's going. We have no interest in it. Our interest is solely Blue Star.
Thank you, Mr. Waluka. Do we want to wait to vote on this and meet next Monday? I know our recommendations have to be in by Friday, but if the select board approves this and then we vote next week, we still can move this article at town meeting, even though the recommendation won't necessarily be printed.
Madam Chair, can I weigh in about the EDC?
Certainly, Sandy.
So we did discuss this, and I think that the biggest concern, I'll mostly speak for myself, but I think others agreed that the concern was that it was being a citizen petition that, as you said, it can't be amended prior. It has to be amended on the town meeting floor. And again, personally speaking, that's not my favorite way of being presented something ahead of time, reading it over, and then having something else come to us at town meeting that's maybe different. Because it was a citizen petition, it was at the point prior to this that EDC had supported the original article. And then I know Select Board had some concerns and was working on some of the language and the wording. I think they wanted to bring it to town council and have town council weigh in. So I guess we felt like that was the process that we wanted to see followed as opposed to this process. And so we asked that Select Board taking a look at it, because I know Mr. Luca had said he would be willing to talk with them and talk about changing the language so that he could amend it on town meeting floor. And that's kind of how we left it, was going back to Select Board and seeing if they wanted to make any suggestions and language changes that they would then support.
I'll confirm that's exactly correct. And while I can't make a change on town meeting floor since I'm not a citizen, but I do know people in Norton would be willing to do that.
All right, well then with that said, I think we should probably table a vote on this until next week after the select board has had a chance to meet tomorrow evening and weigh in on any changes that may need to be made. I'm not opposed to this in theory personally. I'm also a big fan of a full service liquor store. So I just think we want to make sure that we are going to recommend this article knowing what the final language is going to look like and what the process will be if amendments need to be made. So with that said, I think we'll probably need to meet Monday to just quickly discuss this and vote. I also got a whole stack of meeting minutes this afternoon that I didn't have a chance to even look at or send to anyone. So we can look over those and vote on those as well. Any other questions for Mr. Waluka, for Mike, for Sandy? All right. Do you have anything else for us tonight, Mike?
I do not. That's all.
Does anyone else have anything else?
I'd like to thank you all and for the time and for listening, and I look forward to a meeting with you again when you make your vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Waluka. All right, seeing the lateness of the hour. Actually, it's not even that late. This is fabulous. I would entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's any other business we need to conduct tonight.
Madam Chair,
Bonnie?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Excellent. I have a motion. I have a second. Let's vote really fast before somebody changes their mind. Bonnie?
Not changing my mind, yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Yelena,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. I will see all of your smiling faces next Monday night. Be there or be square.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.